All right, guys, this is a tutorial on a counter. A counter, all it does is it either counts up by increments, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, until you get to a certain set point, or it counts down from a certain number of increments. So you start out at 25 and work your way on down to 0. So what they do is after you go to the certain count that you set up, it energizes an output. And so it could be used for a lot of different things. If you're just counting parts like that come off a conveyor, maybe they go by a sensor, and when they get past that sensor, it counts that part, and it'll drop into a box or however it works. But then once it reaches a certain number of parts, maybe it'll energize another component that pushes that box out of the way and maybe sets up a new box. And so the counters are very useful for that. And I'm going to show you real quick how you program one. This is an up counter, and then I'm going to go ahead and put a down counter on here as well. And we're going to put just a regular input on there, and doesn't matter what it is. It can be some kind of push button on here. We're going to use input 3 for the second push button here. So we've got two counters, and we also going to have a reset on there. And I want you guys to go ahead and use your cursor keys for the reset. That way, when you push that cursor, it'll reset your counter to start over again. So we're going to add a cursor key up here above, an up one, and a down one on the second counter. We're also going to put an output on each one of them. So we'll have Q2 or Q1 and Q2 here. So do all your connections, connect all your lines up. This one goes to the second spot down, and it'll say count when you get the wire over there close to it. See, there's the count, and then the cursor key is going to go to the reset key. Now, if you remember, we're going to have, if we're going to use the cursor keys, we've got to put the message text on there. So I'm going to go ahead and put a status high on here, and I'm going to put an open connector over here on the other side. So let's go down here and grab a message text and put in between there and connect those. That way our cursor keys will go ahead and work for us for reset buttons, because we got to have 4 buttons all together. Okay, now we double click on our counter, and we can change it from a count up to a count down. Actually, I'll have to add another little block, but here just a minute. Let's say like we're counting up. We're going to set this at, let's say, 10, okay? And we're going to click OK on that. And we're going to set this one, we're going to do this one as a countdown, and we'll start it out at 12, and it will come on at 0, okay? And we've also got to see this little tab right here. This is a direction. So if I hold this over here or hover over it, it'll tell us that, oops, that's message text. Let's do our counter. If I hover over this, it'll give us some information. The input direction, if it's a 0, it's a up counter. If it's a 1, it's a down counter. So we've got to add a high value to this in order for it to be a down counter. Let me go ahead and add that. So here's a status high input. We'll grab it, put it over here, and we're going to create a down counter on that. That'll do that. Okay, now let's go ahead and simulate this thing. And we've got our cursor buttons. Uh-oh, I better change that over to just a regular button. So let me change this right here on block properties to simulate a momentary push button. And this one here, you can see how this stuff gets kind of complex when you start messing with it. And you've got to work it as you go. Okay, let's simulate it again. All right, so input 1, count. We're counting up, and you can see it on the screen. Let me make it a little bit bigger here. We're counting up, and when we get to, I believe, 10 on this one, then it energizes the output. So in this case, it's a red light. All right, now let's scroll down a little bit so we can see